Fiqh of Ramadan still, isn't it?
Pardon?
Fiqh of Ramadan.
Yeah. Who must fast? Or who has to fast? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen amma ba'd. So picking up from where we left off last time regarding the fiqh of siyam, the fiqh of fasting. Of the things that we mentioned last lesson was, when is it obligatory? How do we know that it's time to fast? And we mentioned about the sighting of the moon. Now, in looking back over the issue, what seems to be the stronger opinion is that if one person sights the moon for Ramadan, then the fast is to be established, not two. You have some who say two, but from the general hadith I mentioned, Ibn Umar is one person. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ accepted his witnessing of seeing the moon for one person. But moving forward now, we start to talk about who is it obligatory upon to fast, who must fast. And it mentions here, وَيَلْزَمُ الصَّوْمُ لِكُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ مُكَلَّفٍ قَادِرٍ. Of the conditions that is mentioned, that is a must to fast for every Muslim who is mukallaf. Mukallaf in terms of fiqh, it means baligh, has reached the age of puberty. Now, qadir, and also has the ability to fast. So, from the things that is mentioned here, as for it's upon the Muslim, that this is the first condition of who is obligatory upon to fast. The first condition is it's upon a Muslim. And from that we understand that it's not upon the kafir, and it's not correct for them if they fast also. So if a kafir fasts, it's not correct, it's not accepted from them, and nor is it upon them to fast. Also, of the things that is mentioned, if they embrace Islam, do they have to make up for the times before Islam? No. They don't have to make up for those days prior to the Islam. And that is taken from where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِن يَنْتَهُوا يُغْفَرْ لَهُم مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ. Surah Al-Anfal, verse 30, where it mentions, say to those who disbelieve, if they cease from that, if they stop disbelieving, i.e. they believe, then what has preceded of their actions will be forgiven. So they're not held accountable for that which preceded their Islam. They are forgiven for this. Now, what is also mentioned by numerous ahadith, that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ never ordered to embrace Islam to make up for anything that has passed. Anything for the days prior to Al-Islam. So it's not upon them to make up for anything, as the Prophet ﷺ never ordered them to do so. But of the questions that is asked, the person who leaves off fasting and the likes and other acts of worship, and they don't embrace Islam, will they be punished for this in the hereafter? Will they be punished for this in the hereafter? And Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions that yes, they will be punished. They will be punished for leaving off siyam and all of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon His creation. They will be punished for leaving it off. And it mentions that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Mubtasim, about the Ashab al-Yamin, أنهم يقولون للمجرمين, they will say to the criminals, and criminals in this sense is the disbelievers, those who are entered into the hellfire. It mentions ما سلككم في سقر, what has driven you to dwell in the place of the hellfire? What has driven you to Saqar? being from the names of the hellfire mentions, قالوا لم نكن من المصلين. The first thing they mentioned, we were not from those who have prayed. We didn't pray. And he mentions, وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. Nor did we feed the poor. We did not feed the needy. وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِدِينَ. And we used to also, now al-khawd is the people that speak in a way that is not befitting about Islam and about other people. They used to be with those people. They used to dwell with the people of khawd. وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And we used to deny and reject what? The hereafter, the day of judgment. And that is from the thing that makes a person, if they were a Muslim, an apostate, to disbelieve in the hereafter and Qiyam, Al-Ba'ath, the day of resurrection, then this is from major disbelief. That's out of the fold of Islam. Now what is mentioned here? If someone says, what if someone says their rejection of the day of judgment is what is clear-cut what? Major disbelief, right? That is the thing that entered them into the hellfire. Their disbelief in the day of resurrection is what entered them into the hellfire. Or these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 4 reasons. And if it wasn't for these reasons that were mentioned, along with their rejection of the day of resurrection, having an impact in them entering the hellfire, then there will be no benefit in mentioning them. It would have been sufficient to mention what? وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And that's it. We used to reject the day of judgment. If that was the only thing that entered them into the hellfire. So, the reasons that are mentioned, the 4 reasons. السبب الأول is ترك الصلاة, leaving off the salah. لم نكن من المصلين. That's the first reason that they're punished in the hellfire. Second reason is not giving zakat. وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. This is referring to, we did not give zakat. We did not feed the poor, the needy, i.e. we did not pay zakat. I mentioned, وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِدِينَ. This is talking about the people of istihza. For example, istihza, the people that mock and ridicule the religion of Islam. For example, at the time of the prophets, every prophet that you need their stories, when Nuh alayhi salam was commanded to build a ship, what happened? Every time the people walked by him, what did they do? They mocked and ridiculed and laughed at him. You see? So this is the people of istihza. These are the people of khawd. So if you enjoin in their actions and participate with them, then you're from them. So it says, وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِدِينَ. We used to do the same as those people. We used to ridicule, we used to mock and make fun and the likes. And it mentions وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. The 4th reason, as we mentioned lastly, is that what? They denied resurrection, the day of judgment. So all of these reasons are from the reasons why they are punished and why they entered into the hellfire. واضح? So the next condition of who is an obligation upon to fast is, as we mentioned, mukallaf. Now mukallaf, it means the one who bears responsibility for their actions. But in terms of fiqh, it means the one who is baligh and aqil. What does baligh mean? Reach the age of puberty. What is the general age of puberty?
8 for the girls.
No, it's not 8 for the girls.
For the girls, it depends.
Between 9
10, 9.
In general, it's 15 for everyone.
Yes.
Boys and girls. But for girls specifically, is when they have
Yeah,
their menses.
These days they have it.
Maybe 10. Okay. The age of 7 is the age of what? Tamyiz. Tamyiz. Okay. Now, tamyiz, we have to differ between things. That's at the age of 7 in general, generally speaking. The age of bulugh, generally speaking, is 15, unless the signs of bulugh are shown. So, for example, regarding bulugh, then it's mentioned that it happens by one of three things for a male child, for a boy. Either reaching the age of 15, or the growing of pubic hair.
Or voice change.
Thirdly, no, voice change is not mentioned. Wet dream. Third is wet dream. Now, having a wet dream. As for the girl, then there's four things. The same three things that we have mentioned, and the fourth is what? Menses. And the menses could happen even at the age of 10 years old, for example. As for the aqil is the opposite of majnoon. The one who has sound intellect, sound rational. They're not mentally ill. Mentally ill where they're insane, they don't have sanity. Okay? Because in contemporary days, many things are considered to be mental illnesses. But do they make you exempt from an acts of worship? No. For example, depression is considered to an extent to be what? A mental illness. If it's not of the level where a person does not know what they're doing, then they still have to fast. They still have to perform the salah. They're still responsible for the actions. The only time they may be excused is when it reaches a level where they are not sanely aware of what they're doing and what they're saying. Is that clear? No. Because the illah, the reasoning behind sanity here is that a person's sanity is lost. And that's why you also attach this, someone who's sleeping, someone who has lost consciousness. Why? Because the rational has gone. At the time of sleep, you're not responsible for anything. You can't be. You're not in control of your actions or what you say in your sleep. Same way if you lose consciousness. Okay? So, al-aql, the opposite is junoon, sanity, and the opposite is being insane. And the evidence for this is when the Prophet said, "Rufi al-qalam an thalatha, an thalathatin," it mentions the pen has been lifted from three. And that is an-na'im hatta yastayqidh, the one who's sleeping until they wake up. And as-saghir hatta yablugh, the child until they reach the age of puberty. وعن المجنون حتى يفيق, and from the one who's mentally insane until they gain rational and sanity. Now, so that's the third condition, that they are mukallaf. There's a second condition, so mukallaf, that they are of the age of puberty, they've reached puberty and they have sanity. The third condition of who is obligatory upon to fast is al-qudra, that they are qadir, they have the ability. They have the ability to fast. And that's the third condition. And the one who is not able to, then they are excused by way of the Sharia. And that's taken from when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Whoever is traveling, whoever is sick or is upon a journey, i.e. traveling, then for them is to make up days from other days, to make it up the days that they have missed from other days. I.e. a concession that a person has is either being sick or being a traveler. And we're going to see in detail regarding sickness shortly. So what is mentioned, al-ajiz, the incapability of fasting, is of types. ينقسم إلى قسمين. The first one is a qism al-tari', something that is temporary, that is circumstantial. For example, that a person has a sickness that is hoped to end at some point. It's not long term. It's not a long term sickness. Okay? It's a short term sickness. For example, a person has a short term sickness that at that period of time fasting will cause them harm. If they were to fast during that time, it will cause them harm. Okay. For this person, they do not fast, but they have to make it up. من أيام أخرى, from other days outside of Ramadan. As for the one who the thing that prevents them from to fast is constant, a long-term illness or a senior age, they're too old and they cannot fast, for example, then as for this one, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. As for this person, then they have to feed a poor person for every day that they don't fast. So as for one who cannot fast because of a long term, i.e. they're not going to be able to make it up either, then they are to feed a poor person for each day. Now, what is mentioned here if a person looks at this ayah, it says those who have the ability to fast, they don't fast, they feed a poor person for each day. Yeah. But we're talking about people that don't have the ability. And this is taken from what is mentioned. If a person looks at the apparent ayah, then they will not see that it's talking about those who cannot fast. But Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, why is he so significant when it comes to the Quran? Naam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu made dua for him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allamahu ta'wil al-Quran, that Allah taught him the interpretation of the Quran. And that's why his nickname is what? What's the nickname of Ibn Abbas? No one knows? Turjaman al-Quran. The interpreter of the Quran. Now, you have the Habr al-Ummah. Now, it's mentioned. You have to learn. What we have to do is go back to some of the biography of the Sahaba, because they're the ones who preserved Islam and carried it on to those who came after them. So we should know some things of them, especially people like Ibn Abbas, anhuma, because he's very relevant, especially in terms of interpretation of the Quran. Those who do not have the ability to fast, they have to feed a poor person. Now, because at a stage, when we mentioned the stages of the obligation of Siyam, we said at a stage there was a choice, right? You could either fast or feed a poor person. Now, but when this got abrogated, the concession of feeding a poor person is only for those who do not have the ability to fast. Okay, those who do not have the ability to fast. So, regarding feeding the poor person, then they mentioned that there's two ways that it can be done. Regarding feeding a poor person, for the days that you are missing your fast, there's two ways that it can be done. The first way, أن يصنع طعاما فيدعو إليه المساكين بحسب الأيام التي عليه كما كان أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه يفعله لما كبر. Here it mentions the first way that when it comes to feeding the poor people is that a person cooks food, makes food, and invites the number of poor people regarding the number of days he is not able to fast. Okay. And that was the same thing that Anas bin Malik, another one of the most knowledgeable of the Sahaba, had done when he became a senior. He became old in age. He would make food and then call the number of people to come and eat from that food. The second way that is to be done is to give them food that is not cooked. To give them food that is not cooked. Okay? And that is going to be the types of food of wheat and rice and other than this, according to the amounts that are stated within the Sharia. Also, of the things that is mentioned, regarding the time of giving the food, the time of feeding the needy. So it says there's a person has a choice. You can do it every day. You can do it every day accordingly for each day for a poor person, or you wait till the last day and do it then. That's what Anas bin Malik used to do. He would wait till the last day and then do it for all those days. Okay? Because you're going to fast either how many days? 29 or 30. So he would wait till the end of Ramadan, before Eid though. And the amount of days, he would invite that amount of people to come and eat from the food at the end of Ramadan. Now, Shaykh Uthaymeen was asked, or he mentions, rahimahullah, can you do the feeding before that time? Before either the day that you miss or the end. And he says, can you do it before that time? He said, the answer is no. Because if you are doing this, then it's also like doing siyam before its time as well. It's like fasting before Ramadan. So it's to be done within the times that have been mentioned. For example, can a person do it in, if he said, for example, if a person done the Sawm during the month of Ramadan, would that be accepted for him? And if you did it in Sha'ban? La. So the same way, how does one feed before Eid if they don't fast the last day of Ramadan? Then in the evening, you feed them, isn't it? Before the morning of Eid. In the evening, you'll know when Ramadan's going to be the night before, the Eid's going to be the night before. By Maghrib. You see, so you prepare it for the evening by then. The fourth condition that is mentioned is that a person must be muqim. Muqim meaning they're not traveling. Okay. What is mentioned here? This goes back to the same ayah. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Whoever was ill or traveling, then they make it up from other days. But what is mentioned, the ulama agree that it's permissible for the one who's traveling to break their fast. They don't have to fast. However, what is difference in this is regarding the one who chooses to fast. The one who actually fasts during that time. Then there's difference regarding this. You have those who say it's not correct if they fast, the one who's traveling. And they also say that they're like the one who fasts before his time because they've been given an exemption within the ayah mentioned. That's the Zahiriyya. Those who are, they're literalists, they take things literally. They have this approach from the ayah where it mentions فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامِ الْأُخَرِ. Then they mention that they are to make it up in other days. They are to fast in other days. They're not to fast in the month of Ramadan. Also, the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it mentions ليس من البر الصوم في السفر. He mentions, al-barr is not from piety to fast during traveling. Okay, so he mentions if it's not from piety, then it becomes a sin. So that's the evidence for those who say that you cannot fast whilst traveling. And he mentions, however, that opinion is weak, because it's authentically narrated that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fasted during his travel in the month of Ramadan. And it mentions that the Sahaba were fasting during the month of Ramadan whilst traveling, and the one who was fasting did not rebuke or admonish or look down upon or frown upon the one who was not fasting, and vice versa. Okay. You also have the hadith in Bukhari of Hamzeh ibn Amr al-Aslami, radhiallahu anhu, mentions that he asked the Prophet Muhammad saying, this month of Ramadan coincides with me being on a travel, when I'm traveling, وأنا في سفر. فقال له إن شئت فصم وإن شئت فأفطر. He mentioned, if you like, then you fast, and if you don't, then you don't fast. He gave him a choice. He gave him a choice of fasting or, and what is mentioned, if we look at these evidences, then what we can understand is when it says from other days, then this means in exchange of the days that you cannot do now, then you make it up after. Not as an obligation, but as sabil al-badil, as a means of compensation, an exchange. You cannot do these days, so then you do days outside of the month of Ramadan. Okay? As for when you have to make up the days of Ramadan that you missed, and it's before the Ramadan that comes, as it came authentically that Aisha anha, she would make up her days during the month of Sha'ban. She would make up the days in the month of Sha'ban. And also with this you have difference of opinion, but the hadith of the act of Aisha anha shows that it's permissible. As-salamu alaykum. Also, of the things that is mentioned, is it not, someone asked, is it not better to make up missed days, miss fast as soon as you possibly can? Of course it's better. It's better, but it's open. Why is better? Because you're still in debt. And obviously the Sha'ban that comes, you're not guaranteed. Okay? However, your intention is to make it up, so you may not be blameworthy. Okay? But it's better to make it up as fast as possible. However, the bab is wasi'. It's permissible to do it until Sha'ban. Okay? Of the things that is now mentioned, what is better for a person? Is it better that they fast, that's sick, or the traveler? Is it better for them to fast or to break their fast? You gonna answer, or you got a question?
No, I have a question.
Go on, go your question.
So let's say if somebody missed a few days in the Ramadan, can he do without the finishing of his fard? Can he do the other Sunnah fasting?
Yes,
You can.
100%. Because it's open. If the Sahaba, some of them would do it in Sha'ban, do you think Shawwal? They can ahras al-nas ala al-khayrat. They were the most determined to do acts of goodness.
So
You
they
see?
can do the Shawwal 6 and then
The Monday, Tuesday, no. Monday, Thursday, sorry. No. A question that was asked also of benefit. Because now this is the first day, it was the first day of what? Ayyam al-Bid now. Ayyam al-Bid, the 3 white days. Today, tomorrow and Thursday. So someone asked, can I combine the intention of the missed days of Ramadan with the white days of Ayyam al-Bid? Ma ra'ayukum? What do you think?
Yes. No.
Yes?
No.
You think yes, Bishra? Muta'akkid? You sure? Who else? Yes. Can I combine my intention for missed days of Ramadan with Ayyam al-Bid? I have 3 days. Now Abu Smith says, La. I had 3 days left of Ramadan that I missed. Do I have any missed days? I don't think so. Thinking, just in case from last year. Yeah. So I think I made. No, Allah musta'an. You don't want to play with the debt with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who says yes? Raise your hands. So Bashir says yes. Islamullah. Who else says yes? You saying yes? You saying yes? Someone put yes with an exclamation mark. MashaAllah. Allah Mubarak. That doesn't mean yes, yeah? I just said Allah Mubarak. The confidence. Someone says, can we combine the intention of a missed fast due to illness, a white day, and Monday and Thursday? Inshallah. But the question is now, I missed a day of Ramadan. Or I missed 3 days of Ramadan. Someone with renal failure, the doctor advised him not to fast, and he says he will sin if he will not fast. What advice can we give him? Okay, so now let's go back to the first question. A person missed 3 days of Ramadan because of illness or because of traveling. It's now the month of Rajab, 3 white days, they want to make up the fasts and they want to fast the Ayyam al-Bid. Can they combine the intention? We had 1 online and 1, 2, 3. Anyone else? So there's 4 people that says yes. Okay. Who says no?
I said no.
You said no. But so the 4th person is online, not you don't.
No, in the beginning I said no.
Yeah, so you're still with no, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
It's the same.
Okay.
The big
So how many people say no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who says I don't know?
Oh, that was I don't know. You should have said that. I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
2,
If
3.
I change mine to I don't know.
It's safe for now, mashallah. The answer is no. But if we say no, why is it the case? Why can't we combine those two?
Because of Farad and Sunnah.
No. Because you cannot combine the intention of an obligation and a sunnah. Okay. So, here, the days you have missed of Ramadan is an obligation. The days of Ayyam al-Bid is sunnah. Okay. So here, you can fast those mistakes. You see, like if it was your norm, you fast the Ayyam al-Bid every day, then you fast those days with the intention of qada, the missed days. Someone asked, would you get the reward? Allahu alam. Allah knows best. Allah knows best.
It's the same as
So if you miss days of Ramadan and you like to fast the 3 white days of Ayyam al-Bid, can you combine the intention of the missed days and the days of Sunnah fast? You can't. What is correct is that you don't combine a wajib with a Sunnah. No.
it's the same as the Salah. You cannot
Yeah.
combine the intention.
So Someone asked now, someone has renal, renal, how do I say this? Renal failure. I don't know what that is exactly. And the doctor advised them not to fast.
That's,
From the bowel system.
yeah.
Okay. Shafahullah. May Allah give them good health. I mean, well, if a person's in that situation, the doctor says don't fast, and he says he will sin if he will not fast. He will not sin if he will not fast. He comes underneath the category of those who are ill. Either he's ill in a way that he's better encouraging, yeah. He keeps cutting out the live, Allah understand. If in fasting is going to cause them, then he mentions Sawm becomes haram. If you're traveling or you're sick, and if you fast, it's going to cause, it will be harmful to you, to your health. In doing so, it becomes haram to fast. لقوله تعالى ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم إن الله كان بكم رحيما. Do not kill yourselves, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful with you. Now, so this ayah, as mentioned, whatever brings about harm to a person, then it has been prohibited. What will bring about harm for a person has been prohibited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only commands us to do that which is a maslahah for us, that which is going to be a benefit for us. Now, either something of good to be done or evil to be avoided. Okay. Also, someone says, what if they say, but this ayah is talking about killing specifically, and don't kill yourselves. Now, not the general. Now, إلى التهلكة. Now, so here it mentions it doesn't consist of the general harm, but it mentions here from the apparent ayah, yes, it's only talking about killing yourself. Now, however, Amr ibn As radhiallahu anhu, he used this ayah also as a means of negating harm, prohibiting harm, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam affirmed of his action, affirmed and agreed with him in that. This is in Bukhari, and it mentions, for example, in this situation, that the Prophet Muhammad sent him with a caravan, had sent him with a delegation, and what happened? فَأَجْنَبَ فَتَيَمَّمَ وَلَمْ يَغْتَسِلْ. He was in a state of janaba. Amr ibn As was in a state of janaba, i.e. he had released sexual fluid, so he has to make ghusl to purify himself, right? He has to make ghusl, but he made tayammum, not wudu, tayammum, and prayed. So he mentions فقال له النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أصليت بأصحابك وأنت جنب. And here we can kind of understand that maybe he even led the salah. Yeah, did you lead the people, your companions in salah, and you janaba? I'm not going to ask you guys what you think. Why? Because we don't deal with the religion like this. It's not what do we think, it's what's the situation. Prophet said, did you pray with your companions in salah and using a state of junub? This necessitates ghusl. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, ذكرت قول الله تعالى ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم إن الله كان بكم رحيما. He mentioned the ayah. And he says, وكانت الليلة باردة فتيممت فضحك الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. ما شاء الله. So he mentions After the Prophet Muhammad asked him, did you really lead the people, your companions, in prayer? And you was in a state of janaba. And I mentioned that, didn't you say the ayah, do not kill yourselves. Do not kill yourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful with you. And that night was very cold. So I made tayammum. So the Prophet Muhammad says, this showed that he affirmed his action. And it also shows that this ayah contains reference to the general harm also. Whatever is going to be harmful to you, then you have to avoid it. And this is the way this is how we also look at the Sunnah, is that which the Prophet ﷺ affirmed. He did not reprimand or rebuke the action of a Sahaba or their statement. So in this situation, he didn't tell him, you need to make that salah, you need to go and make a ghusl and repeat the salah. He didn't say anything. He laughed, and that is a sign of affirmation to the action that had occurred then. But mashallah. Now, in this situation, because the other day the boiler was off and the water was freezing cold. MashaAllah, it was hard to make wudu the other day. Yesterday, innit? It was peak. In that situation, can I do that, make tayammum? Why not? There's water available, good. I could go to the shop and get water that's not in the fridge. Even if water in the fridge was not as cold as the water that was coming out, the wudu tap. That's how cold it was. It was freezing cold, mashallah. But because there's water available, you don't have that accession. That's that concession. Is if water is not available, that will not cause you harm. But also, if, for example, it was so cold though, it was so cold, and if I was to use water, because I was wet, it might make me sick. Whether I can get water here or there, it doesn't matter. I would make tayammum. Sheikh Abu Bakr, do you remember? 2012. MashaAllah. But in 2012, me and Sheikh Abu Bakr was here in the masjid. And there were some brothers that were from overseas, mashallah. And I'm telling you, for maybe over 5 minutes, they had the water running and they kept doing this. It was so cold, outside and inside. And the water was freezing cold. It's when, I don't know, whoever was there that time, you had one silver tap. Some big silver tap. And he's like this. For long, 2 of them. So they came and they said to the Imam at that time, we cannot make wudu. It's too cold. It's too cold. We cannot make wudu, it's too cold. So they were given the concession of making tayammum. But I remember that day, subhanAllah, you watched them for so long. They were in the water. Like as if it's boiling hot, but it's freezing cold, and that's like this. As soon as they touch it, Allah understand. But for us, it was okay because we're from here, we're used to it. They may have been from a hot place. They were not used to that level of coldness. They could not make wudu. And it was even the brother next to me yesterday. He was like, you know, you have to hype yourself up. You're like a sportsman when they're going to get in the freezing off, you're like that. It's like, this is the kind of way you make wudu. I said to Akhi, just do it once, don't worry, just do once. Because it's too much. But you can imagine, like, the Prophet ﷺ was laughing, subhanAllah. It's when we're reading it, we laugh because it's funny. But it's not funny that it's a ridicule, no, it's for nafs. But mashallah. So, from this, the Sharia has put principles that protect us from harm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided within the Sharia principles that govern the being of the Muslim. And not even the Muslim, all of Allah's creation. Everything that Allah has legislated is in the well-being of His creation. of the things mentioned, how does a person determine what is harm? What is the measuring stick? How do you determine what is harm? Now, this is an amr hissi. This is something that a person will know within themselves. If you're fasting or trying to fast and you're sick and your pain or your situation gets worse from fasting, then you cannot fast. This is a sign that it's causing you what? Harm. So this is of the ways that if the pain gets worse and the likes, then a person shouldn't fast. So what is mentioned, if a doctor who is knowledgeable says that fasting is going to cause you harm, then you take it. If a general person says that, you don't take it. It has to be someone of knowledge. It has to be someone of knowledge that knows the reality. That if you fast in your situation, it's going to cause you harm. Because there's some sicknesses fasting is actually good for. There's some sicknesses that they'll recommend that you should fast. And you'll find stories of the Salaf when they were sick with certain sicknesses, they would fast. So what is mentioned here, is it a condition that the doctor be Muslim? Is it a condition that they are to be Muslim in order for you to trust in them? Because the non-Muslim is not trusted.
No, not that this time you're trusting the knowledge,
No. So, is it a condition that the doctor who says it's going to be harmful has to be Muslim? It mentions in this regard there are two opinions, but what is correct is not a condition. They don't have to be Muslim. Also, regarding the one who's traveling, should they fast or not fast? Again, it goes back to the same principles, whatever is easy for them. Whatever is easy for them. So a person looks at the reality of, will the fasting cause them harm and the likes. Also, you have a situation when fasting was difficult. When fasting is difficult, traveler, then it's preferred that you shouldn't fast. It's preferred that you don't fast. If it's going to cause you harm, then you're not allowed to fast. Okay? So if it's going to be difficult for you but not cause you harm, you can fast, but it's better not to. If it's going to cause you harm, then you must not fast. You understand the two situations? Okay? And what's mentioned in the Hadith of Prophet ﷺ, mentioned that some of the Sahaba fasted whilst it was difficult for them. And you mentioned أُولَٰئِكَ الْعُصَاةِ أُولَٰئِكَ الْعُصَاةِ. They are the disobedient. Meaning why? Because they fasted during a time of difficulty. When it was difficult for them. And they went against what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had done. Because at that time, he had broke his fast. He had broke his fast, but they continued to fast. Okay? But he broke his fast because of the difficulty that was coming with fasting and traveling at the same time. So it's better, it's preferred to follow those concessions, to take those concessions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So again, in summary, if traveling or sickness, fasting is going to make it worse, then you are not to fast. If it's not going to cause you harm, but it's going to be difficult upon you, then it's that you don't fast. Preferred that you don't fast. Okay? And that is of the things that is mentioned regarding who is obligatory upon them to fast, inshallah. And we'll continue to mention some different matters next lesson, inshallah ta'ala. Any last questions quickly before on anything that we mentioned today? No.
I'm just trying to think of an example right now where in this modern age where fasting is difficult, where you cannot fast. Can you give me an example if you've got one in your head where in this modern age?
That is nisbi. It goes back to the individual. We have a long journey. The food on the plane is rubbish. The air is rubbish. Like if I go on a plane and that air thing makes my nose dry, my throat dry, I'm not gonna bear hardship. I'm gonna sip. But if it's only 3 hours, maybe I say, you know what? It's 3 hours. Where I'm going, the time is not much different. It's easy, but going there, the traffic, the hardship, carrying the bags, rushing, it might cause hardship upon me. Yeah, it goes back to the individual.
For example, when you travel to Umrah in July, you're going to find it difficult going around to offer this finishing the whole day. You're going to.
Yeah, of course.
You can't, and you're in cover. You can't fast because it's too hard for you, especially if you're coming from these places.
Another issue is people traveling intentionally to avoid fasting. This is not to be done. This shows ضعف الإيمان, weakness of iman. That's the fear of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Someone chooses to do it.
Yeah, people travel intentionally because they don't want to fast.
So what about in a situation where someone missed a few days feeding, or it has to be?
Now they have to fast. Yeah. The only way they can make it, the feeding is for those who have been given that concession. You see? Either because they have long-term sickness and they're not able to fast.
Assalamu alaikum.
No. You see?
Is it conditional that you must be, complete all your, the left fasting before the next Ramadan?
Yeah, you have to. You complete it before. You complete it before the next. That's why from the action of Aisha, she would not leave it beyond Sha'ban. She'll make them up in Sha'ban. You have to do it before the next Ramadan. Some say you're sinful if you don't. No, you have to do it before the next Ramadan.
Any evidence for that?
Allahu Alam. But the action of Aisha, she didn't delay it beyond Sha'ban. No.
Because an example I would like to ask is the feeding mother.
Then she feeds. If she can't fast because she's feeding, it's long term, she feeds the poor. She should feed the poor. No.
Even if there is a reason for it to delay it till next Ramadan.
If you delay it to next Ramadan, you get pregnant again the next Ramadan. 5 Ramadans.
For some other reasons for a man.
No, but in general, if you have a long-term sickness, then you feed. If for example, the reason that we mentioned, you apply the same principles. You see? But if it's not an illness, you make it up from other days. You see? For example, if you're able to fast, you make it up. There's no excuse. You make it up. Sometimes when we look for excuse, we become lenient. You see, we can't be lenient. This is the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal.
Yes. Say for example, there are some brothers who were put in prison. If you're like,
Make a mark on the wall every day. If you can see the moon, the new moon.
those are prisons here. Right?
Yeah, Allah Musta'an. Yeah, it's underground.
Yes.
It's in the floor, it's down, underground.
Call themselves houses.
Yeah. I went to an old prison. It's no longer a prison. They use it as a museum now, but it's underneath the ground. Yeah, it's peak. Do you know why they have so much people in the cell? I think it's to keep them warm so they don't die. Because it's just concrete. It's going to be freezing cold. You see? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is even generous and merciful to the kafir in this life. That makes the worst crime, the mushrik. But some people, when they're given authority, they totally abuse it. And they become oppressors. Any other questions related to what we mentioned today?
Long-term illness changes to a short-term illness, and you've already fed. Could you still fast, or because you've already?
No, you've fulfilled what was upon you. Then if it stops, and then let's say for example you had an illness that you couldn't fast for like 2-3 years, and the next thing you know, the next year it's gone. It becomes a short-term illness. Or let's say for example, during half of the Ramadan, you became better, so you intended to feed at the end.
You mentioned that someone of old age can feed. Is that also like when someone knows how like they had, for example, they're not that old but they struggle to fast within themselves, they're not like, the strongest person, can they choose to feed?
No. It has to go back to our people of knowledge. But if you're old, when we say old, like Kabir, a Sheikh, Kabir, is going to be senior. You see, their stomach doesn't function as good. You see? And if they don't eat, like for a certain amount of time, they'll get really low blood sugar, it will affect them and cause harm, then they have to not fast. No. But you know, not ones, you have some 80-year-olds that's than us 15, 30-year-olds because we just eating rubbish. We eating chicken and chips every day and all this crap. So what happens? We're not giving our body any goodness. So our body is older than our age. When you have the elderly, and I've met some, I met a man on the bus the other day and he told me 75, I couldn't believe it. 75 and he was a strong man. He didn't sit downstairs, he comes straight upstairs solid. I would have thought he was 46, maximum. He said, no, I'm 75. But I don't eat rubbish. I haven't taken no injections since I've been there except for one that made me come here. And I walk every single day, 5 miles. And he'd shown me he'd already done that by 12. Before I came for Dhuhr, he'd already done 5 miles walking. But us, we're the opposite. We wait till we're older, mash up, we start looking after our health. And unfortunately, every secondary school, what does it have right next to it? By the bus stop? Chicken and chips. That's not near private schools. That's near public schools. Go to a private school area and tell me what you see there.
All areas as well.
Yeah.
Rich ones.
Go to Dulwich and look at the schools there and tell me if you see chicken and chips.
I see fields.
You see fields, you see grass. You see a nice cafe. Proper food. Not chicken and chips. So I'm saying, so these are the things that we also have to be cautious of, because like this is a part of you taking responsibility of your health. Allah has given you this body for you to take responsibility, look after it. You see, and this is where you have to condition yourself against your desires. The chicken and chips, it smells nice, it tastes nice, but every time you eat it, nearly almost everyone who eats it somewhat knows, I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad choice. Not me, myself, I'm like that. If I eat it, I'm like, oh man, why did I do it? I wasn't that hungry. You see? But these things will have an impact on the person in the long run. Take care of your health to the best of your ability. Whatever afflicts you is from the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you're patient upon it. But it's just to know how does one function when it comes to fasting. But we stop here, inshallah ta'ala, as no one reminded me of the adhan. But jazakumullah khairan, subhanahu wa ta'ala, la ilaha illa. No. But inshallah next week we can